Hello and welcome to my review of the Marshall Origin 50 head. There's a few options that you can choose from in this range. You can start off with the combos, which are 20 watt and 50 watt combos. And then you've got the Marshall Origin head, which is the one I've got behind here, which is a 50 watt. Okay. Just to go through some of the features, it's a selectable output. So you can change this switch here, and at the moment it's on the medium output, okay, because we're in a relatively small room. I could have put it on the low output. The low output, I believe, is around about sort of 5 watts. The middle output is around about 10 watts, and then on the high output it's around about 50 watts, okay? I say roundabout because even if you read the Marshall manual, with valve amps they vary ever so slightly, so when it says 50 watts it could actually be slightly less or slightly more. That's why we know that valve amps generally compared to transistors tend to be louder amps, okay? Yeah, so my history of Marshall, as I said, I'm not affiliated by Marshall to say this is a great amp. If I don't like it, I will say I don't like it. But because I've invested my hard-earned money into this amplifier, obviously, I believe it's a great amplifier, and I've tried it out and I really like it. Okay, as I said, my history with Marshall then is I've owned loads of Marshall heads and combos. I've had a Marshall Silver Jubilee, I've had a Marshall DSL 50, a Marshall DSL 100, JTM 60. As you can see, the list goes on. I've had quite a few Marshall heads because I sort of just love the sound of them. They've got a really unique sound. And I think lots of other amplifier companies tend to just try and sort of copy that, British sound, that Marshall sound. They may do their own little twists and things, but they're always the sounds. The Fender and the Marshall are always the sounds that we sort of come back to, and that other companies try to sort of emulate, or in a way. Okay, so I've owned Marshall amps, I've owned Fender amps, I've had a Fender Supersonic Twin, I've had a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, and recently I've ended up with a Kemper. Okay, now. A Kemper, as you probably know, is a profiling system, and the Kemper allows me to play live, and it just solves all my problems live. It allows me to use an in-ear monitoring system, which is great for playing live. Okay, so it means I can hear myself and I can hear the rest of the band. You can do it obviously with this Marshall head and things like that, but it just means it's a bit more tricky. Okay, you need a few more sort of devices to make this work. And I just like the simplicity of the Kemper. It does all the effects, does all the cab simulations, and it does obviously allows you to have in-ear monitors as well, which is a plus for me playing live. Okay, so why did I buy the Marshall then? You're thinking. Okay, so that's a good question. Now the reason why I bought the Marshall is because I still felt like I needed that sort of my valve kick in my life. Okay, I still needed that sort of valve sound. I really felt like I was missing it. Okay, I've got other amplifiers as well. I've got a Yamaha THR that I use for teaching. It's a great amplifier, but again, I still felt like I was just missing that valve, that warmth you get, okay, and how the valve amp reacts to your playing. It's a really organic thing, and I just felt like I was missing it. Okay, so I'm not going to be taking this out gigging. This is just an amplifier that sits in my room, and I use it for practice and for teaching. And you may be thinking, well, that's a big amp to have in a small room. It is, okay, but compared to my Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, which is 40 watts valve. That will blow your head off, okay? There's no settings I could find within this small room to actually turn the thing on and get it up past sort of 1. It's ridiculously loud. The plus with this one for me is it has the selectable output, as I mentioned earlier. So you can select the wattage. So as I said, you can drop it from 5 to 10 to the full 50 watts, depending on your room and your environment, okay? When you're gigging, you probably want that extra headroom. And headroom just means sort of the clean sort of sound before it starts to break up, okay? With less headroom, the amp will start to break up much quicker, okay? And I like quite a bit of headroom on my clean sounds, okay? I don't want my amp to break up unless I want it set up that way, okay? So within this room, I can set it to, I've got it on the medium setting at the moment, so that's on sort of 10 watts. I could set it to the, to the low setting, or, just to see and just take the edge off it a little bit, just take the power down a little bit, which is another reason why I bought this amplifier, because it's a bit like a plexi, okay? So this is when you watch any of the reviews online, or you read the manual and things like that. It's based very, very closely sort of on a plexi sound, okay? So a plexi was an old Marshall that people sort of rant and rave about, and what people used to do is used to jump the two channels to get the normal channel and the bright channels and get a blend of the two. This allows you to do this with a very clever little switch, which I'll show you in a second. Sorry, more of a knob it is actually, not a switch, but I'll show you in a second, okay? So let's just have a look at the front panel, okay? So I'm just going to turn around and to go through some of the features on the front panel. We've got presence, okay, makes sense. That's the higher sort of, the top sort of high treble end. We've got the master, okay, which obviously is just the master output, the amount of volume in the signal. The treble, middle, bass, and we've got tilt, okay? And then we've also got a gain there as well. Now, as I said, presence just means sort of the high treble end to the really high highs. The master is obviously what you set to get your overall output. Okay, so if you set that really low, you're going to get a really low signal. If you set it really high, you're going to, depending on the setting, you might blow your head off. The treble, as you know, is probably a higher frequency sound. Okay, so I've said this in many videos before, but the guitar sits on sort of a middle and a treble frequency band. That's the main sort of sweet areas of the guitar. So that's a very tweakable knob that you can really sort of dial in a great tone with that. So the treble's got there, middle, as you said, the middle is you can imagine it on a graph. You've got the treble, you've got the middle, and then you've got the bass. The bass is the low, mids is obviously in the middle, and then you've got the high, really high frequencies. And then we've got, as I said, the bass is the low frequencies, and then we've got the tilt. Okay, now what the tilt is basically the plexi. Okay, so back to the plexi. So the plexi, as I said, you could jump the two channels together, and you could get either mix of the blend of the normal channel and the bright channel, and that's exactly what that tilt does. If you turn the tilt all the way to the left, you'll get a much darker sound. Okay, much more bassy sound. And if you turn it all the way to the right, you'll get a much more trebly sound. Okay, so it's trying to imitate sort of the sound that you used to get from an all plexi. Okay, and then you've got the gain. Okay, so if you wanna crank this amp up a bit and you want it to start breaking up, you might crank the gain up a little bit to get that to break up. Even on a clean sound, if you turn the gain up past a certain point, depending on the guitar, you'll start to get break up. Okay, where it starts to distort a little bit. Now I will say a couple of things. This amp is not a very gainy amp at all. Okay, and I love that because the whole point of this amp for me was to put pedals for it. Okay, this is not a gainy amp. This is not going to get you into heavy metal. It's a classic rock, blues, classic rock sort of sound. It's AC/DC. Think that sort of bluesy sound is great for that. It does that really really well. Into the metal sounds, not really. No. The gain on this amp is, as I said, it's a low gain. It's not heavy gain at all. Okay. Pretty much it's a single channel amp. Yeah. There's no dual channel. There's no sort of, you can't change the channels. But this is what I wanted. I wanted simplicity, and I wanted the amp to be super simple, just a really simple signal flow, and I just wanted the pedals to do all the work. Okay, that was the whole point of buying this amp for me. So if you haven't got lots of pedals, or you don't need lots of pedals, but if you haven't got any pedals that will do that sound and get you an overdrive sound, then maybe this isn't the amp for you, because it's not a gainy amp. As I said, it's not going to get you really high gain sounds. So if you want that sort of sound, you might want to look elsewhere. Okay. But for the price, as I said, so the price I paid for this was $355, which I think is a lot of amp for that sort of money. There's not much else I can think of really of this sort of quality, I would say, in the range that you can get a really great sort of valve sound from. Obviously, you have to have a cabinet, so that's going to be an extra cost as well. So if you imagine, I paid probably £450 maybe for the cabinet. So that's starting to rack up into a decent amp. So you do need a cabinet, okay? So you do need a cabinet. You can't just sort of plug this. You're not going to get any sound without the speakers, okay? So right, let's just go through some of these sounds then. So I've talked enough about the amp, I think. Let's just see what the actual thing sounds like, okay? That's what you're here for. So I've got all my pedals behind me, and I've got nothing switched on, okay? So going straight through the pedals, straight into the front of the amp, all right? So this is what this sounds like, just straight out of the Marshall, okay? So it's going to sound pretty dry. There's no reverb on this amp as well. That's one thing to mention. There's no reverb, okay? So there's no, if you want a reverb, you want to look elsewhere for that. So here we go. So that's on the neck pickup. You can knock it down one, okay? So one down from the neck just so you hear the different sounds. So I'm hearing like Long Train Running sort of sound, or like Nile Rodgers sort of like. A really funky, great sound, and a really good sort of clean sound. It's, for a Marshall, it's a really good clean sound. I really like this sort of clean sound. On the bridge pickup, now this is, what I'll say is this amp has a heck of a lot of treble, okay? Now I've heard lots of, I've seen lots of reviews online, and I've heard lots of things, people saying, oh, it's too much treble, it's a horrible, harsh sound. All you got to do is dial that back, and that's what I've done. So I've got my treble set up. I think I mentioned earlier that I've got it set up on 2. my presence is all the way off. Okay, so as I said, presence is sort of the high treble frequencies. On this amp, I've got it set to off. All right, that just shows you how much treble is in this, in this amp, how much high frequencies you can dial in. However, I said I'm going for a Strat as well, which are known to be quite trebly and maybe sometimes a little bit shrill. So I'm on the bridge pickup. This is with the treble all the way. Sorry, not the treble. The presence all the way off, and the treble is on around about 2. Okay, so down pretty low. Okay, so let's see what that sounds like on the bridge. Okay, so you would agree, so it's a pretty dry sound, but I didn't buy this amp to play like I am now, just completely dry straight through the amp. I played it to put pedals through it, okay? So this is what we want to just bear that in mind. Before we just pop pedals into it, there is a boost switch, okay? Now if I just bend over here and just press this switch, is a boost, and it's going to boost and add a little bit of gain to the signal and give you a rise in volume, okay? So listen to the volume difference now. That's a heck of a difference, yeah? That's really boosting the signal a lot. That's really usable though, and that comes with a Footswitch. This amp comes with a Footswitch which has 2 functions on it. You've got the boost on the left hand side, then you've got the effects loop on the right hand side. Now, funny story here is I was looking to do this demo video much earlier, but Wally over here forgot to grab the Footswitch from the shop when I left. I was so excited. I bought a new acoustic guitar, a new amp. I was just so excited. I want to get home and try it all out. And I forgot to take the Footswitch from the Marshall, yeah? So I got it back home, plugged all the pedals in, plugged the delay and the reverb through my effects loop, which I'll talk about in a minute, what I'm doing with that. And it just wasn't working. And I was thinking, oh no, what have I done? And I thought, oh no, I can't activate the effects loop because I haven't got the switch. So yeah, and to be fair, the place I bought this, PMT in Bristol, they were brilliant. I phoned them up, and they sent out in the post, they sent out the Footswitch to save me going back down there. They sent the Footswitch and the manual and a few little things that came with it in the post, and it came the next day. So, I can't grumble with that. But next time, make sure you've got everything in the box. Note to self before you leave the shop. Okay, so, right, that's what it sounds like, completely clean. As I said, it's not a gainy amp, so I really don't think there's much point in me showing you with the gain all the way up and that sort of sound, because as I said, it's not a gainy amp at all. I'm not even going to push it into high gain at all. So that's what... This is a very good pedal platform amp, okay? Do not buy this amp if you think it's going to be your everything. You don't need pedals or anything. You will need pedals to, really bring the sound of this amp, okay? But you put the pedals into this amp and this thing really comes to life, okay? It's really good. So what I'm going to do first of all then is I'm going to put a little bit of reverb on. I'm using the MXR reverb, okay? And I've got it set to a plate setting, so not lots of reverb, but you can just hear hopefully a subtle difference now. Okay, and hopefully what you start to see is this amp starts to warm up even more now, okay? We've gone from literally bare bones with nothing on to we're starting to bring in some new sounds. And we're basically just warming this amp up, okay? It's just sounding, every time I'm adding stuff in, to me it's just sounding really nice, and that's exactly what I could hear in the shop. The chap was saying to me, it's just like, you sure you want this amp? Because there's not a lot to it. And I was just like, this is exactly what I want. I want really simple, and I want my pedals, because I've got lots of nice pedals, I want my pedals to do all the work, okay? Right, so here's my clean sound. All that Hendrix stuff, is it? What a great sound. It's just Hendrix in there. It's Hendrix in the box. So, yeah, that's a clean sound. All I've added in is a tiny bit of reverb, okay? Tiny bit of reverb. Next thing I'm going to add in is a carbon copy delay by MXR, okay? So have a listen to this. So just add a little bit of delay. Okay, now remember I said that's with the presence all the way off, and that's plenty enough treble for me. Have a listen. okay? You can hear the delay trails now that I've stopped that sound. But yeah, that's plenty of treble for me. I don't need any more than that, so I turn the presence all the way off. I've got the tilt as well, by the way, set right in the middle. So that's a nice balance between the, as I said earlier, the bright channel of the plexi and the normal channel of the plexi. Okay, right, on we go then. So let's add, I'm going to turn the delay off a minute, and I'm going to add a little bit of overdrive to the signal there, so a bit of distortion. Now this is going via a Angry Charlie, okay, so this is a, it's actually a Sweet T, the pedal I've got on the floor, JHS Sweet T. One side is like an Angry Charlie side, the other side is like a TS808 tube screamer sort of sound, okay? So let's just hear what the Angry Charlie side sounds like in a minute, so here we go. Now what a great sound, I mean you can already tell that, you know, this is really inspiring to play, I'm getting really into that. Okay, so you can tell this takes pedals really well, okay, really well. So that's the JHS on there. What else might you like to hear? So let's just put in, I'm going to put in a little fuzz now as well to see what that sounds like. On my fuzz, what I love to do is mix it with the Whammy pedal. Okay, now the Whammy pedal, I've got set to the lower octave setting, and I love this sound. You know, I can play that all day long. It's just such an inspiring tone, and that's using a Wampler Velvet fuzz into a Whammy pedal. Okay, I've got a wow pedal on there, but I'm not going to worry about that because I'm facing the other way to do that. And just what we're trying now is just some clean sound. Okay, so some clean sound without the overdrive, a little bit of carbon copy delay, the reverb on obviously, and then I'm going to put a little bit of chorus on as well and see what you think of the sound of that. So here we go. So what should I do? Really usable tones in this amp. One other thing you might like, I'm going to turn the carbon copy off, turn the chorus off, and I'll pop on the right hand side of the TS808 of the JHS Sweet T. I'm going to turn the right hand side off, which is like an 808 tube screamer sort of tone, and this is set to sort of give me sort of a bit of breakup, a bit of sort of a yeah. So, you know, you need the pedals to do this, I would say. So rounding this off then, so that's the sounds, okay? We listened to the sounds, we've had a good look at the Marshall. Just some of the features as well, actually, on the back of the Marshall, which is really important, I think, for some of you guys to sort of know what's on there so you can connect things up. There's one 16 ohm output, there's two 8 ohm outputs, there's obviously an effects loop, which I'm using to run my delays and reverbs through. That's how I always set my amps up when I use them live. If I use a live amp like this, I will always put my reverb and delay using a 4 cable method, okay? 4 cable method obviously simply just means I'm using 4 cables instead of 2. So more annoying in terms of the wraps on the floor with the cables, but if you can keep it neat with like a little cable tidy or something, to me, it's a much more superior sound, and that just suits me as my preference. Okay, some people like to go from two cables, one in one end, one out the other end, straight to the front of the amp. I just find the delays and the reverbs blend better with the amp when they're put in the effects loop. Okay. I didn't mention either the valves in this amp. Okay, so people like to know, what the valves are in this amp. There's 2 EL34s and 3 ECC83. Okay, so a very typical Marshall sort of setup. And there's plenty of power on this amp. Okay, it is plenty powerful. We're on the middle output, which is 10 watts. I'm not even going to put it onto the 50 watt output because it'll probably blow the sound, and I'll get clipping. But you can tell that's on the middle output and it's plenty of power. You could easily gig with this. Okay, so the other thing on the back of the amp is there's a DI output, which I am using to go straight into my MacBook to be able to record the DI output, and I was just interested to see what the tone is. So when I edit this video, I'll just see if I can blend the two together from the microphone I got on the phone and also from the DI out to see what it sounds like, how good the DI is to use. So yeah, who is this for then? Okay, so this is not for somebody who just wants an amp to do everything. Okay, if you want your amp to do all the effects, or you want your amp to have more than the multiple channels, if you want to do your gain from your amp and your clean from your amp, this is not the amp for you. Okay, this amp is for people that want a just really simplistic amp. Okay, so just really great valve sound, and you have to lots of pedals, but you use the pedals to create your tone. Okay, to sculpt your tone. Now, I used to just have everything running out of my amp, so I used to have the Silver Jubilee, which had an amazing gain sound, and I used to use the clean on the Silver Jubilee, sort of set it up. It was a Silver Jubilee had sort of one channel really, and you just sort of had to balance it, so you had to get so it wasn't too gainy on the clean sound. You don't want it to break up on the clean sound, and then when you kicked on to the other sort of sound, more of a driven sound, there was a balancing act between that amp, but it sounded amazing. But what if you're one of those guys who wants a really good clean sound and you want a second channel for an overdrive sound? That's not this amp's not going to do that for you. Okay. What this amp will do is act as a really great pedal platform for pop-in pedals for it. Okay, if you've got a tube screamer, it sounds amazing. If you've got any overdrive pedals, or if you've got lots and lots of pedals that you want to put through this amp, provided they're all plugged in sort of the correct format, as I said, I prefer the reverb in that and the delay in the effects loop. I just think it creates a much more superior sound, and that's preference. Dave Gilmore, as far as I know, doesn't do that. He just plugs straight into the front with his delays. So it all depends on what sound you want. I just find the delays are a bit more in my face when I've got it plugged straight into the front, as in when it's in the back in the effects loop. I just find it blends better with the amp, and that's the best way I think to describe it. So it's not for you guys who want a really heavy like metal gain sound. It's really not going to do that. You might get a pedal to do that. That will do well. But if you want your amp to do all that sort of heavy gain sound, this is not the amp for you. Okay, a Plexi wasn't that anyway. Okay, you're thinking sort of AC/DC, Angus Young, maybe Malcolm Young, actually more sort of crunchy sort of sound. That's what this amp can do. It's not going to get you into it's going to get you into free classic rock sort of territory, but it's not going to get you into sort of that there's more heavy gain sounds. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this review. This is just my first impressions. I've had it for the amp for about 3 or 4 days now, and I love the thing. Okay, I'm really inspired to play it. I really enjoy playing it. As I said, make sure if you're gonna buy one of these, you try one out. Obviously, you don't want to buy one just online just because I said it was good, because we're all different. Yeah, we're all different, so we all like different things. I particularly like the Marshall sound. Okay, if you can dial a Marshall in well, and I think that's the thing when people say they like Marshalls, I just don't think they're not dialing it in the right way. Okay, you just got to know that Marshalls are just generally quite trebly and sort of quite pushed in the mids, and providing, I like a more boosted mid sound anyway, so that's good for me. But with the treble, as I said, I had to turn it pretty much down to like 3, I think it's on. And then I've got the presence completely off, and I still got enough gain on tap to, sorry, not gain, I got enough treble and enough coming from the guitar. There's plenty enough for me, okay? As I said, I really don't want to sound shrill when I play. Humbucker guitars, okay, you might set the gain a little bit lower. Obviously, humbuckers can give you more output. So if you've got a Les Paul or something that's equipped with a humbucker, you might set it up slightly differently. But I've tried it with a couple of guitars. Tried it with my Luke, which is behind you, the Music Man Luke, and I've tried it with this one, which is the Strat. And this amp just sounds fantastic. So pop down to your local music dealer, check one out, and thanks for watching this review. I'll see you soon.